Hello everyone. Subscribe to the channel to get more videos. Also, let us know in the comments what city you are watching from. Now let's begin this one. I got the call while I was sitting in my truck, eating lunch out of a Tupperware. It was official. After 18 years of grinding in that rail yard, I was finally the head foreman. I stared at the screen for a second before it hit me. I'd made it. I actually made it. My name's Jack Simmons. I'm 43 years old, live in Shepherdsville, Kentucky, and for most of my life, I've been a wrench turner. The kind of guy who's always covered in grease and 5 minutes behind on sleep. But that day was supposed to be different. I got home a little after 6. The house smelled like garlic bread, and the news was murmuring on low volume in the background. Kara was curled up on the couch, half buried in a blanket, scrolling her tablet like she hadn't moved all afternoon. I got it, I said, stepping out of my boots and grinning like an idiot. The promotion. Head foreman. She didn't even look up. Cool, she said, thumb flicking the screen. What do you want for dinner? I stood there for a second, waiting for something more. A smile. A hug. Hell, even a congrats. But nothing came. She just kept scrolling, her face lit by the cold glow of that screen. I tried to play it off. Figured we might celebrate, I said, walking into the kitchen. Big deal, right? She shrugged. We got that cheap bottle of red left. Want me to open it? I bit down a sigh. Sure. Dinner was quiet. She didn't ask how it happened or what it meant or how I felt. I kept waiting for her to bring it up, to say something, anything. Instead, we talked about her sister's vacation photos and a pothole near the Kroger. She barely touched her wine. Later that night, I was flipping through my phone when I saw it. Kara had posted a picture, 2 wine glasses clinking, soft candlelight in the background. The caption read, "When life changes in all the right ways." I stared at it for a long time. There was no mention of me. No mention of the promotion. No, so proud of my husband, or congrats to Jack. Just that vague, glittery caption begging for curiosity. The comments rolled in fast. OMG, are you pregnant? Did you guys buy a house? What's the big news? Spill. Kara liked every one of them. Replied with winks and smiley faces. But not once did she correct them. Not once did she say, Jack got promoted today. He worked his ass off for it. I didn't say anything. Not that night. But as I laid there, staring at the ceiling while she snored beside me, something in my chest started to tighten. Like a wire pulled too taut. This promotion, it was supposed to mean something. All those winters freezing my fingers off under busted engines, the third shifts, the skipped vacations. I thought this was the moment she'd be proud. That I'd finally be more than just the guy who paid the bills. But instead, I was a footnote in her story. And for the first time, I started to wonder if I'd ever really been anything more. The cookout was in Crestwood, at Kara's parents' place. Big backyard, string lights, catered barbecue that tried too hard to be fancy. It was the kind of crowd where people wore polo shirts tucked into pastel shorts, where every conversation felt like a job interview. I felt out of place the second we pulled up. Kara looked perfect, of course. Hair done, dress pressed, that subtle little smirk she wore when she was back in her element. I walked behind her carrying a tray of coleslaw, sweating through my button-up and already wishing I was back at work. We hadn't even made it 10 feet into the yard before her mom swooped in with her kisses and that high-pitched laugh I never quite got used to. Jack, she said, patting my shoulder like I was a good dog. Still working at the train yard? Rail maintenance, I corrected gently. I got promoted. Head foreman now. Oh, isn't that? She trailed off, glancing at Kara. Cool, right? Kara said, already half turned away, spotting someone else to talk to. I ended up next to the cooler, nursing a warm beer and watching the conversation swirl around me like smoke. At some point, her younger brother Eli came over. Same as always, loud, cocky, and always looking for someone to dunk on. He worked in tech somewhere, kept calling himself a systems architect, whatever the hell that meant. So, Eli said, biting into a rib and talking through it, heard you got bumped up at the train yard. That's adorable. I kept it light. Yeah, lot of years getting to this point. He grinned. Guess the rail yard needed a charity case. It hit harder than I expected. The group around us, her cousins, a couple of her dad's friends, burst into laughter. One of them clapped me on the back like it was all just good fun. I looked at Kara. She was standing a few feet away, sipping wine, and she laughed too. Covered her mouth, but not enough. She didn't say a word to defend me. I gave a short laugh, nodded, and turned away. Yeah, real funny. Later, during dessert, I tried to disappear. I sat in one of the Adirondack chairs near the fence, picking at a slice of pie when I heard her dad call for a toast. "All right, folks. Quick one before we dig into that cobbler," he said, holding up his glass. "To Darren, who just landed a book deal. That kid's always chasing the dream, huh?" And there it was. Darren, Kara's ex. The travel blogger, the free spirit who used to charm this whole damn family. I remembered their old stories. How he backpacked through Peru. How he once cooked a 7-course meal in a Brooklyn loft. Everyone raised their glasses. Even Kara. She smiled, sipped, didn't look my way once. I sat there, holding my plastic fork like a fool, the only one not smiling. It wasn't the toast that stung. Not really. It was the way they all lit up at the mention of her ex, like he was still part of the family. And me? I was just the guy who fixed broken things and paid for dinner. The guy no one toasted. As the night dragged on, I stayed quiet. I nodded when spoken to, laughed when expected. But inside, I felt something shifting, like a bolt snapping loose. I had earned something. I thought that meant something. But to them, I was still just background. The help in the family photo. And to Kara? Maybe even less than that. I left the house before sunrise the next day. Didn't say a word to Kara. Just scribbled a note, taking a drive, don't wait up, and headed south with a thermos of gas station coffee and an ache behind my ribs I couldn't name. Bullitt County's farmland isn't much to look at, but it's quiet. Wide roads. Empty fields. The kind of place where silence doesn't feel like a punishment. Ross had a place out there, tucked back off a gravel road that ate my shocks for breakfast. We hadn't spoken in almost 6 years. Not since Mom died and he refused to come to the funeral. The cabin was still there, same sagging porch, same metal folding chair out front. He was sitting in it when I pulled up, smoking like he'd been waiting on me this whole time. "Well, hell," he said, not getting up. "Thought you were a ghost." "Yeah," I muttered, stepping out. "Feels like one." He didn't ask questions. Just stood up, slapped me on the shoulder, and went inside. I followed. The place was a mess, beer cans, old magazines, a busted couch that sagged worse than the porch, but it felt real. Honest. Like it wasn't trying to impress anyone. He cracked open 2 beers before I even sat down. "Still too early," I said. "Don't care," he replied. "Sit." We drank in silence for a while, just the sound of wind pushing through the trees and some birds screaming in the distance. Finally, I spoke. "Got promoted." Ross looked over, one eyebrow raised. "Good for you." "Kara proud?" I hesitated. She said cool, then posted some vague wineglass photo like it was her big day. He snorted. "Figures." I kept going, about the cookout, Eli's little charity case joke, the toast to Darren, how Kara laughed at both. Ross didn't interrupt. Just sat there with his boots on the table, nodding once in a while. When I was done, he took a long drink and said, "She doesn't respect you, man." I stared at him. "It's not that simple." "It is," he said. "You're background noise in her new life. You build it, maintain it, make it run, but you ain't part of it." I swallowed hard. "She wants Darren. Or someone like him. Something shiny. You're too real." I wanted to argue, but I couldn't. Because deep down, I already knew it. I thought of Kara laughing at that toast. Of how she smiled into her wineglass like nothing outside that moment mattered. Like I wasn't even standing there. Ross got up, grabbed another beer, didn't ask if I wanted one. "You staying?" he asked. "Yeah," I said quietly. "Just for the night." He nodded. "Blankets in the closet. Couch ain't great, but it's honest." I slept like a rock. No dreams. Just silence. And in the morning, when I got back in the truck, I didn't feel lighter. But I did feel clear. Kara had made her feelings obvious. Now it was time to pay attention. When I walked through the front door the next morning, it was like nothing had happened. Kara was in the kitchen, humming something tuneless, scooping coffee grounds into the machine like she hadn't spent the weekend pretending I didn't exist. "Hey," she said without turning around. "You want some?" I stared at her back. "Sure." She poured 2 cups, set one down at my usual seat, and went right back to scrolling on her phone. She didn't ask where I'd gone. Didn't ask why. Just sipped her coffee and checked her notifications like I was a ghost passing through. We didn't talk about the cookout. We didn't talk about the toast. We didn't talk about anything that mattered. That night, she crawled into bed next to me and slid her hand across my chest like it meant something. Her fingers traced slow circles, warm against my skin. "You okay?" she whispered. I turned away. "Just tired," I said. She paused for half a second, then rolled over without a word. That week was strange. Too normal. She smiled more. Cooked dinner twice. Laughed at dumb shows on Netflix and reached for my hand like we hadn't been miles apart for months. I wanted to believe it. Wanted to think maybe she'd realized something. But the feeling didn't last. It was Thursday night when I noticed the text. She was in the bathroom, brushing her teeth. I was looking for a charger in her purse. She always kept an extra in there, and the screen lit up when I bumped it. Darren, still thinking about that lemon tart. You always did have dangerous hands in the kitchen, winking face. The bubble popped up like it had been waiting for me. I stared at it, stomach sinking, heart not even bothering to race. Just this slow, dull thud behind my ribs. She walked back in like nothing had happened, drying her hands on a towel. TV or bed? She asked, smiling. Bed, I said. I didn't say a word about the text, but I started watching. The next few days I noticed everything. The way she smiled at her phone when she thought I wasn't looking. The extra long grocery runs. The new perfume she spritzed on before grabbing lunch with Becca. That Saturday, she said she was going to her sister's place across town. Hair done, fresh makeup, too nice for a family drop-in. I followed her. She didn't go to Becca's. Didn't even get on the highway. Instead, she turned off Main, circled through a quiet block in Old Louisville, and parked in front of an apartment building I didn't recognize. I stayed in the truck, parked 2 spaces back. She buzzed in. Waited. Smiled when the door opened. Darren. He was barefoot, holding the door like he owned it. She stepped inside, laughing. And then the door closed behind her. I sat there for 10 minutes. Maybe 20. Long enough to feel stupid. Long enough to feel the heat rising behind my eyes. But not tears. Something tighter than that. Something sharper. She wasn't just sneaking around. She was building a second life. And I'd been nothing but a silent passenger. Not anymore. The meeting was scheduled for 10:15 sharp. I figured it was just a routine check-in. Something about updated safety protocols or overtime allotments. HR never called me in unless they needed help sorting through paperwork or union logistics. But the moment I stepped into that beige-walled conference room and saw both Linda from HR and my direct supervisor, Dawn, already seated with stiff faces and a printed folder between them, I knew this wasn't routine. Jack, Linda said, folding her hands on the table. Thanks for coming in. What's this about? Dawn glanced at her, then nodded. There's been a formal complaint. I blinked. Complaint. Linda opened the folder. Multiple reports over the last 3 weeks. Descriptions include erratic behavior, increased aggression, and potential safety risks. She looked at me with that flat, careful expression people use when they're trying not to escalate a situation. We're obligated to follow up. I sat down slowly. From who? She hesitated. The report was submitted anonymously, but the details, they're very specific. One mentions you throwing tools in frustration near the tool shed. Another says you've been short-tempered with vendors. And there's even mention of you cursing out a coworker in the break room. My stomach tightened. Those things. They weren't real. But they weren't random either. Whoever wrote them had access. Knew what time I took my breaks, what tools I signed out, even where I parked on Wednesdays when the backlot filled up. Only one person knew all those details. Kara. She was the only one who had ever heard me vent about Tim running late again or the new vendor screwing up our order. She'd been the one sitting across from me when I muttered, "One more delay like that, and I swear I'm gonna lose it." I realized then, she hadn't just been cheating on me. She was setting the stage to burn me down from the inside. I kept my face neutral, but my fingers curled into fists under the table. Linda slid a paper across to me. We're not taking any disciplinary action right now. This is just a preliminary review. But if the behavior continues, it won't, I said. She nodded. Good. After the meeting, I sat in my truck for a long time. Engine off. Just thinking. When I finally pulled up our joint bank account on my phone, I wasn't even surprised by what I saw. 3 separate cash withdrawals, each just under $2,000, spread out over 3 weeks. I called her. She picked up on the third ring. Hey, what's up? 3 withdrawals, I said. Almost $6,000 total. What's it for? She didn't miss a beat. Old credit card stuff. From before we merged accounts. I told you I was cleaning that up. No, I said quietly. You didn't. There was a pause. Then she laughed. Well, sorry. I didn't think you'd care. She hung up before I could answer. That night, I dug through our credit reports and account history. No debt. No past cards. No overdue balances. The debt didn't exist. But the betrayal? That part was very real. It was a Thursday afternoon when I stopped by Rick's garage to pick up my truck. Routine stuff, just an oil change and a belt replacement. But Rick had loaned me his beater sedan for a few days while he waited on a part. I thanked him, handed back the keys, and slid into my truck. It felt good, familiar. Mine. I turned the ignition, adjusted the seat. Then I noticed it. A shopping bag shoved awkwardly under the passenger seat. Crumpled, like it had been shoved there in a hurry. I reached down and tugged it out. It was one of those boutique bags from a downtown shop Kara always walked past, but never went into. Inside, there were 2 perfume boxes. One unopened, the other half-used. A hotel keycard from a Marriott in Clifton Heights. And a receipt. Room 306. 2 nights. Paid in cash. At the bottom of the bag was a small folded note, written in Kara's quick, bubbly handwriting. Last night was everything. Yours. See. I just sat there. No music. No movement. Just that note in my hand, and the sound of my breath. Shaky, deliberate. The perfume? It wasn't the one she wore around me. This one was sharper. Sexier. I remembered smelling it faintly last weekend when she came home from her sister's place. Cheeks flushed, hair messy like she'd just stepped out of a music video. She lied right to my face. Again. That night, she came home late. Said her sister wanted to watch some dumb dating show and talk about IVF. I nodded. Didn't flinch. She kicked off her heels, gave me a peck on the cheek, and asked what I wanted for dinner. Already ate, I said. Long day. She didn't notice the shift. Or didn't care. She disappeared upstairs to shower, humming something off-key. I went to the garage. Sat at the workbench. Pulled out an old cigar box where I kept extra flash drives and receipts. And for the first time in our marriage, I started collecting. Bank statements. Phone records. GPS pings. Photos from her Instagram stories that didn't match her claimed whereabouts. The more I looked, the more it unraveled. Texts from Darren. Lyft receipts to his building. Grocery store purchases she never brought home. By midnight, I had a folder full of screenshots and notes. I labeled it Kara Truth. That night, I didn't cry. I didn't yell. I just stared at the monitor while her laughter drifted down the hall from the bedroom. And I realized I'd been living in a house built on lies. Sleeping beside a woman who looked me in the eye and saw a doormat. But she wasn't just careless. She was arrogant. And that was going to be her mistake. I bought the burner phone the next morning. Cash only. No receipt. No questions. Tucked it into my glove box between a flashlight and a rusted tire gauge. Then I created a private email account. Blank name, scrambled letters. Nothing that could ever trace back to Jack Simmons of Shepherdsville, Kentucky. By the end of the week, I had a system. Every time Kara left the house, I logged into our phone plan's shared dashboard. Checked her GPS history. Matched it to Lyft rides and ATM withdrawals. I started organizing files like a lawyer prepping for trial. Bank transfers, withdrawals, flagged. Phone logs, Darren message screenshots. Photos, 4/12 Marriott stay. Receipts, boutique, perfume. The pile grew. Every day, a new piece of the puzzle slid into place. Meanwhile, at home, she was as sweet as sugar. Called me babe again. Started packing my lunches like she used to. Even tucked in notes, dumb little hearts, and hope your day's good, in her handwriting. I smiled back. Said thanks. Kissed her temple when I got home. And every night, I worked the case in secret like it was someone else's life. The day I pulled the property records from the county office, it all clicked into place. Darren's apartment, Unit 302, Clifton Heights, wasn't just his anymore. The lease had been updated 3 months ago. Kara's name was on it. Not Simmons. Her maiden name. She hadn't just been visiting. She'd been nesting, building a backup life in soft focus. Getting her alibi straight while draining my time, my trust, and our bank account. I stared at the lease form for a long time, sitting in my truck with the window cracked and a cigarette burning low between my fingers. I hadn't smoked in years. But that day it felt right. She thought she was smart. Thought I'd never notice. Thought the man who fixed train brakes in the dark and rebuilt engines from memory wouldn't know how to trace a paper trail. She was wrong. Back home, I transferred everything to a USB drive. Printed copies. 2 full binders. Then I hid the burner phone, the documents, and the original lease under the false bottom of my old tackle box. Locked, buried in the crawl space where she'd never look. I was ready. Not for a confrontation. Not yet. This wasn't about rage. Or revenge. This was about clarity. I didn't want to scream. I didn't want to chase. I wanted her to walk right into the trap with her lies wrapped tight around her like a silk scarf. Let her think she was untouchable. Let her post her little quotes and wine selfies and cryptic captions about moving forward. Because the moment was coming. And this time, I wasn't showing up empty-handed. The lawyer's office was in a strip mall between a vape shop and a tax service. Nothing fancy. Just a glass door with Law Office of Susan Grady painted in block letters. But the moment I stepped inside and dropped that thick black binder onto her desk, everything changed. Susan was maybe in her late 40s, wore a ponytail and no makeup, and didn't waste time on small talk. "Is everything?" she asked, flipping through the folder. "There's more," I said, setting down the USB and a second binder labeled Supplemental Asset Activity. She whistled low. "You've been busy." 8 weeks, I said. "She's got a second lease with her maiden name, joint withdrawals from our shared account, and she filed a complaint with my company using private information she only could have gotten through me." Susan paused. "Wait, workplace interference?" I nodded. "Filed anonymously. But the details are too close. No one else knew about the stuff in that report." She leaned back in her chair, arms crossed. "This isn't just divorce, Jack. This is fraud, malicious interference, and financial misconduct. If you want to press it, we've got grounds for asset protection and possibly even civil damages." I didn't smile. Just said, "File it." By noon the next day, the divorce petition was submitted. We had a temporary freeze placed on the joint account through an emergency motion. I rerouted my direct deposit to a new private account at a credit union across town. Kara would never know it existed. That same afternoon, I emailed my company's HR department with a full timeline, clean documentation, and a formal counter report. Attached the anonymous complaint side by side with GPS data and bank records showing Kara's behavior during the exact date she claimed I was erratic. When Don from HR called me back, his tone was completely different. "Jack, we had no idea. We owe you an apology." "You've got it now," I said. That's all I needed. By the end of the week, the complaint against me was officially closed. And quietly, my supervisor pulled me aside and said something I hadn't heard in months. "Hell of a way to handle a mess like that," Don said. "Not gonna lie, we thought you were cracking. But you're a rock." I just nodded. Didn't say a thing. At home, Kara didn't know yet. She was still planning her fake errands, still texting Darren when she thought I was in the garage, still pretending like she lived in a house with a blind man. But the walls were closing in. The paperwork was filed. The money was locked down. And the next time she looked at me like I was just the guy who took out the trash, I felt something different. Not anger. Not sadness. Just calm. Because now I had everything I needed. And she had no idea what was coming. She came home late on a Tuesday. Hair perfect, smile wide, heels clicking through the hallway like nothing had changed. She had a shopping bag in one hand and some story about grabbing dinner with Becca already queued up. I was waiting in the kitchen. Calm. Hands folded on the table. The manila envelope sat right in front of me. "Hey, babe," she said. "Sorry I'm late." Becca got all worked up about her II appointment. "Sit down," I said. She froze, mid-step. Her smile faltered. "What?" I nodded at the chair across from me. "Please. Sit." She set the bag on the counter slowly. I was flicking to the envelope like it might be a snake. "What's this about?" I slid it across to her. She opened it without a word. Inside, the divorce papers. The bank account freeze confirmation. The complaint response letter from my job. A copy of the lease she signed with Darren's address. The photo of her and Darren outside his apartment. GPS data printouts. ATM receipts. Her hotel stays. All of it. When she finally looked up, her face was pale. "You went through my stuff?" "I followed the lies," I said. Jack, I can explain." "No, you can't." She tried again anyway. "It wasn't like that. Darren, he was just someone I vented to. We weren't." "Kara," I said, quiet and firm. "You signed a lease." She blinked. Her mouth opened, but no words came. I stood up, pulled the USB drive from my pocket and set it on the table. "Everything's backed up here. In case you're thinking of spinning some version where I'm the bad guy." Her hands were trembling now. "You're really doing this?" "I already did." I turned to walk away, but she jumped to her feet. "Wait, Jack, please, don't do this. You're angry right now, but we can fix it. You can't just throw away a marriage because I made a mistake." I turned slowly, looked her dead in the eyes. "You didn't make a mistake," I said. You made a second life. She took a step forward, tears in her voice now. I was lonely, okay? You were always working, always tired. I needed something that made me feel seen. No, I said. You needed an exit plan. You used me as the safety net until you were ready to jump. She didn't deny it. Just stood there, tears finally starting to fall. I still love you, she whispered. I shook my head. No. You loved what I provided. She picked up the USB and held it tight like she didn't know whether to smash it or beg for mercy. I walked to the front door, pulled out my phone, and sent one last text to her family group chat. Her parents, her brother, her sister. Attached, a zip file labeled Kara's Truth. Caption: You raised a toast to the wrong man. When I opened the front door, she was still frozen behind me. Where are you going? She asked, voice breaking. Out, I said. You've got keys. Pack whatever fits in your purse. Then I stepped outside, closed the door behind me, and for the first time in months, the silence felt like peace. 2 months passed. The HR complaint? Closed. Buried. Officially ruled unsubstantiated and retaliatory. Linda from HR even apologized to me in person, something I never thought I'd hear. The promotion stayed intact. And 3 weeks after that, I got a raise. Not a huge one, but enough to make it clear the company saw me, not just as a worker, but as someone who handled hell without flinching. People at the yard started looking at me differently too. Not with pity, with something close to respect. Like they saw what I'd survived and realized maybe I wasn't the quiet pushover they thought I was. At home, well, there was no home. Kara was gone. Last I heard, she was staying in a furnished apartment across the river. Darren's lease had been terminated a week after she moved in, probably due to the legal filings tied to the workplace interference complaint. The building didn't want the heat. She texted me once. Just a single message 2 weeks after she'd left. Kara, didn't think you had it in you. I didn't reply. What was there to say? She gambled that I'd stay dumb and quiet forever. She lost. Her family never responded to the file I sent. Not directly, but I noticed her brother unfriended her on Facebook, and her mom's happy couple photo frame had disappeared from her living room shelf when I dropped off the final box of Kara's things. No eye contact, no small talk, just a nod at the door, like even they didn't know what to say anymore. Funny how fast a toast goes flat when the truth shows up. My evenings now are quiet. Simple. I come home, kick off my boots, heat up leftovers. Sometimes I sit on the porch with a beer and let the sky go orange. I don't check my phone as much. I don't check her location. I don't wonder where she is. I don't care. There's still hurt, still anger in quieter moments. But it doesn't own me anymore. It's like a scar you forget about until it catches the light. What matters is this. I came out the other side whole. I kept my job. I kept my dignity. And most importantly, I kept myself. No more chasing someone's approval. No more holding my breath waiting for kindness. No more building someone else's dream at the cost of my own worth. She tried to wreck my name, my work, my heart. But I'm still standing. Still solid. Still me. And this time, I'm not fixing someone else's mess. I'm just living. Quietly. Honestly. And for the first time in years, that's enough. Thank you for watching. Subscribe to the channel and share your opinion about this story in the comments.